We will find out over the rest of the season if 3rd-and-33 finishes Ben McAdoo the way the Joe Pisarcik fumble finished John McVay once. And we'll find out if 3rd-and-33 finishes McAdoo the way the Giants' fourth-quarter collapse in San Francisco in a playoff game one time, concluding with a slapstick field goal attempt, ultimately finished Jim Fassel. Sometimes there are moments in sports from which you do not recover. People keep talking about the fact that McAdoo was 115 in his first season coaching the Giants, as if somehow that is going to save him. Fassel coached the Giants all the way to a Super Bowl, and coached them to the playoffs in the 2002 regular season, and was gone after the Giants finished 412 in 2003. Let's see if the Giants can even get to 412 this time. 3rd-and-33, Robert Woods running through and then running past so many Giant defensive backs you thought there were 11 of them on the field, actually dose and just make you remember embarrassments out of Giants history. This was something out of Jets history. This felt like a butt fumble of a play last Sunday, against a team coached by John McVay's grandson. Now all week we hear some of the Giants players acting outraged that anybody would ever think they had quit on McAdoo, after a game when the Rams went up and down the field, especially in the second half, as if half the Giants had gone home when they rang up the Giants for 51 points at home. This really was a game out of the 70s. Bill Kistroup. What happened to McVay's Giants happened in a lost era for Giants football, at that time when fans were hiring planes to fly over Giants Stadium and announced to the world that 15 years of bad football was enough. There was no hope in those days, before everything became hopeless when Pisarcik tried to hand the ball off to Larry Csonka instead of taking a knee. The ball was fumbled, old friend Herman Edwards picked it up and scored, and the whole thing became the miracle at the Meadowlands. It was a moment that defined an era at the Meadowlands. The offensive coordinator who called the play, Bob Gibson, was fired the next day. Before long, Andy Robustelli, a great Giant out of the past, was out of a job as general manager. McVay was out of a job as coach. The next year, George Young became the team's general manager, one of just 3 the organization has had in nearly 40 years. Bill Parcells became his coach later. The Giants won 2 Super Bowls with Parcells, same as they would under Tom Coughlin. Coughlin came along in 2004, after Fassel's last team as a head coach did go 412. But Fassel was really on his way out after his own embarrassment, in San Francisco, where the Giants play on Sunday, against one of 2 teams with a worse record than they have this season. The Giants were ahead of the 49ers 3,822 going into the fourth quarter of a playoff game, and ended up losing, because they didn't kick the field goal that could have saved them, a field goal attempt that went about as wrong as one could go. There was a bad snap, and the holder, Matt Allen, tried to throw a pass to Rich Subert, an offensive lineman who had reported as an eligible receiver. Subert ended up wide open. Allen tried to get him the ball. Subert got pulled down. Should have been pass interference, but the refs lost track of the fact that Subert was eligible, called him for being an ineligible receiver downfield, which they decided, incorrectly, wiped out the obvious pass interference call against the 49ers. Rob Kurgiti images. The Giants lost a playoff game they looked as if they would win in a rout. Giants fans don't remember the end of Fassel's coaching career because of 412. They remember him because of what happened at Candlestick Park that day. He was once supposed to be the kind of offensive genius that we were told McAdoo was, when McAdoo was brought in as Coughlin's boy wonder offensive coordinator, and clearly became the head coach in waiting. McAdoo, of course, isn't in charge of the Giants' defense, one that let Robert Woods line up in the slot and catch that pass from Jared Goff on 3rd-and-33 that became a 52-yard 2-count pass. That is Steve Spagnuolo's job, the same one he once held under Coughlin. Spags was brought back to restore old glory. Instead, his defense produced the play that will be remembered from this season unless somehow the Giants begin to look like a real football team again, starting Sunday against the winless 49ers. But fumble of a play for the 2017 Giants, in a lost season out of the past. If they lose in San Francisco, they leave there with the same record as the 49ers. Once, and not so terribly long ago, the Giants and 49ers played an overtime NFC Championship game. Now, in November, the 2 teams have 1 win between them. The Giants came into this season with high hopes. They have provided low comedy instead. McVay didn't survive that fumble. Fassel never really overcame that ending in San Francisco. It will be interesting to see if the current coach, and the current general manager, survive 3rd and 33. Might take another miracle at the Meadowlands. Cashman's bet, Russ protocol blunder, Jeter's big deal. Brandon McCarthy on Roy Halladay. He was your favorite player's favorite player. Every time I turn on the television I keep waiting to see Dave Roberts bringing Brandon Morrow out of the bullpen one last time. I kept waiting for Ezekiel Elliott's lawyers to find a judge on the moon who would allow Elliott to play on Sunday against the Falcons. I'm throwing my hat into the ring for the Yankee manager's job, just because everybody else seems to be doing that these days. Jefferson Siegel, New York Daily News. Steven Spielberg's new is called The Post. It is about the Washington Post and the Pentagon Papers, and Tom Hanks will play Ben Bradley and Meryl Streep will play Katharine Graham. I think I'll be able to find time in my schedule to that. Twice, probably. Wait, we don't have to call off the Rangers season after all. By the way, it's pretty amazing, when you think about it, that in all the years Brian Cashman has been general manager of the Yankees, he has only hired one manager. Now he gets set to hire another. And it will be as important an acquisition as he has ever made. Because say it again, by letting go Joe Girardi, who took the 17 Yankees to within one game of the World Series, Cashman has placed in a wee big bet on himself. And, let's face it, what we're seeing so far doesn't exactly look like a voice like Star Search. If a dimple bigot and accused pedophile like Roy Moore is elected to the U.S. Senate in a month, then the state of Alabama will officially become this country's capital of slow thinkers. And it is worth pointing out again, just for historical accuracy, that for Moore to get a softer place to land than an interview with Hannity, the judge would have had to do a belly flop on a waterbed. You know what team is lurking in the NFC? Cam Newton's. Walt Anderson, a ref in Thursday night Seahawks-Cardinals game, sent Russell Wilson off the field after Wilson got his bell rung off the field and supposedly right into the NFL's concussion protocol. Wilson, though, decided he didn't need no stinkin' protocol, wasn't examined by a doctor, and went back into the game after missing one play. Only he doesn't get to make that call. Andrew Savulich, New York Daily News. It is why his team ought to get good and fined by the league. Speaking of the league, I'm starting to worry that not even couples counseling will work for Jerry Jones and Roger Goodell. It really would be something if the Jets go to 55 today in Tampa, wouldn't it? There is one storyline in this baseball offseason, and then all the others just capped. Jeter moved Giancarlo Stanton, and where does Stanton and his 59 home runs end up? If the Mets want to bring Jay Bruce back to Citi Field and he wants to come back, fine with me. Chris Paul goes to Houston and Paul George and Melo end up together in Oklahoma City, and the story of the season so far in the NBA is Brad Stevens, the 41-year-old boy wonder coach of the Celtics. The Celtics lose Gordon Hayward 5 minutes into the season. They lose Kyrie Irving from Friday night's game against the Hornets 2 minutes into it, after Irving takes an elbow to the head, and win again, making it 11 in a row after a 0-2 start. And is anybody outside Detroit paying attention to the fact that the Pistons were 93 after Friday night? We are now moving up on a quarter century, and the old Buffalo Bills, since a losing Super Bowl team made it back to the big game. It seems like a lot longer than a year ago that we were talking about Landon Collins as a guy who might win Defensive Player of the Year. Doesn't it? Mike McAdoo might not want to look in the rearview mirror and talk about the Jets not drafting Deshaun Watson, but I sort of think Jets fans do. And might keep doing, for about the next decade or so. Not gonna lie, missing baseball.